Letting go is the gateway to happiness because most of the pain people carry is not coming from what is happening now, but from what they refuse to release. You replay old conversations, relive past failures, and hold on to resentment as if gripping it tightly will somehow protect you from being hurt again. In reality, it only keeps the wound open. The human mind clings to familiarity even when that familiarity is suffering. You tell yourself that if you stay guarded, if you stay in control, you won't be disappointed. But happiness cannot enter a heart that is barricaded by fear. When you finally loosen your grip on what already happened, you create space. Space for clarity, space for peace, space for new beginnings. Letting go is not about pretending it didn't matter. It's about deciding it no longer controls you. That decision alone begins to shift your entire emotional world. Happiness is not something you chase down like a trophy at the end of struggle. Happiness is not something you chase down like a trophy at the end of struggle. It is a natural state that reveals itself when resistance fades. Every time you argue with reality, wishing the past were different or demanding the future unfold your way, you create inner tension. That tension becomes stress, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. Letting go dissolves that resistance. It means accepting what is without surrendering your ambition or your standards. It means accepting what is without surrendering your ambition or your standards. It means understanding that you can work toward better while still being at peace with now. When you stop fighting what you cannot change, your energy becomes available for what you can influence. Your focus sharpens, your breathing slows, your focus sharpens, your breathing slows, your heart softens. Happiness begins to rise, not because life suddenly becomes to rise, not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because you are no longer at war with it. So many people believe that holding on proves strength. They think if they keep pushing, controlling, and forcing outcomes, they will secure the life they want. But constant control is exhausting. It keeps your nervous system on high alert, scanning for threats, bracing for impact. Letting go is the radical act of trusting yourself enough to handle whatever it is. Letting go is the radical act of trusting yourself enough to handle whatever comes next. It is saying, I do not need to grip this moment so tightly to survive it. When you release the need to control every variable, you discover resilience you never knew you had. You learn that you can adapt, recover, and grow without micromanaging every detail. That realization brings relief. It brings lightness. And in that lightness, happiness begins to breathe again, no longer suffocated by fear. Letting go also means releasing the identity built around your pain. Sometimes people cling to old stories because those stories define who they believe they are. The betrayed partner, the failed entrepreneur, the misunderstood dreamer. These labels become familiar, almost comforting, even when they hurt. But happiness requires evolution. It asks you to step beyond the narrative that once explained your suffering and into a new chapter that reflects your strength. When you let go of the story that keeps you small, you allow yourself to grow beyond it. You stop introducing yourself to the world through your wounds. You start showing up through your wisdom. That shift transforms how you see yourself and how others experience you, creating emotional freedom that feels expansive and empowering. The gateway to happiness opens the moment you choose presence over attachment. Attachment clings to what was or what might be, while presence lives fully in what is unfolding now. When you let go, you return to this moment, the only place life is actually happening. You notice the air filling your lungs, the opportunities around you, the subtle beauty in ordinary experiences. Your mind is no longer hijacked by regrets or hypothetical fears. Instead, it becomes clear and grounded. From that grounded state, gratitude becomes easier. Creativity flows more naturally. Relationships feel more naturally. Relationships feel more authentic because you are not projecting old pain onto new interactions. Letting go does not strip life of meaning. It deepens it. It anchors you in reality where genuine happiness quietly waits to be experienced. Control is the illusion that steals your peace because it convinces you that safety lies in managing every detail of your life. You plan every outcome, rehearse every conversation, and attempt to predict every possible problem before it appears. At first, it feels responsible and intelligent, like you are protecting yourself from chaos, but beneath that behavior is fear, the quiet belief that if you loosen your grip, everything will fall apart. The mind becomes addicted to control because it creates a temporary sense of certainty. Yet life has never operated according to your exact blueprint. The more you try to dominate every situation, the more anxious and frustrated you become when reality refuses to cooperate. Peace disappears not because life is unstable, but because your expectations are rigid. When you demand control over uncontrollable forces, you create a constant internal battle that drains your emotional strength. The need for control often begins as a defense mechanism. Perhaps you were disappointed, betrayed, or blindsided in the past. You learned that unpredictability hurts, so you built walls of planning and overthinking to avoid feeling powerless again. You tell yourself that if you can anticipate every outcome, you will never be caught off guard. But this hypervigilance keeps your nervous system in survival mode. Instead of living, you are bracing. Instead of living, you are bracing. Instead of trusting, you are monitoring. Peace cannot exist in a mind that is constantly scanning for threats. Control promises protection, yet it quietly robs you of calm moments and genuine joy. It turns simple situations into strategic calculations and transforms relationships into strategic calculations and transforms relationships into negotiations. The more tightly you hold on, the more fragile you feel, because deep down, you know life cannot be fully controlled. When you release the illusion of control, something powerful happens inside you. You begin to separate effort from attachment. You still show up, you still work hard, you still pursue excellence, but you no longer tie your emotional stability to specific outcomes. You understand that you can influence your actions without dictating the results. This shift changes everything. Instead of reacting with anger or panic when things do not go as planned, you adapt. Instead of spiraling into self-doubt when circumstances shift, you recalibrate. Your confidence becomes internal rather than situational. Peace grows in that space, because you are no longer wrestling with reality. You are cooperating with it. You stop measuring your worth by how well you can manipulate outcomes and start measuring it by how grounded you remain when life moves unpredictably. Control also creates tension in relationships. When you try to manage how others think, behave, or respond, you create resistance people can feel when they are being shaped or directed to fit someone else's expectations. This tension erodes trust and intimacy. True connection thrives in freedom, not in control. When you let go of trying to orchestrate every interaction, you allow authenticity to emerge. You let go of trying to orchestrate every interaction, you allow authenticity to emerge. You listen more deeply. You respond rather than react. You accept that others have their own journeys, choices, and lessons to learn. This acceptance does not mean you tolerate whatever it is, respect or abandon standards. It means you understand the limits of your authority over another human being. That understanding brings relief. You no longer carry the impossible burden of shaping everyone's behavior to maintain your sense of security. Peace returns when you recognize that life is dynamic, not fixed. Seasons change, opportunities evolve, and people grow in ways you cannot always predict. We desire to build a family is my desire to build whatever it is. Trying to freeze everything in a perfect arrangement only creates frustration. When you embrace uncertainty as part of the human experience, you discover resilience you did not know you possessed. You realize that you can handle discomfort, adjust your plans, and move forward without collapsing. Control once felt like strength, but flexibility reveals a deeper power. You learn to anchor yourself internally instead of externally. Circumstances may shift, but your center remains steady. That steadiness is the foundation of real peace, a calm presence that does not depend on flawless execution or guaranteed outcomes. You are not your past or your pain, even if it feels like those memories are stitched into your identity. The mind has a powerful way of replaying old moments until they feel permanent, like scars that define who you are. You remember the mistakes, the heartbreak, the failures that seem to stop you in your tracks. Over time, those experiences stop feeling like events and start feeling like events and start feeling like labels. You stop saying that happened to me and start believing that is me. But your past is a collection of moments, not a life sentence. Pain may shape your perspective, but it does not own your future. Pain may shape your perspective, but it does not own your future. Every memory lives behind you, not ahead of you. The fact that you can look back at those experiences proves you have already moved through them, and movement means you are not trapped where you once were. Pain has a way of convincing you that growth is impossible. It whispers that because you were hurt once, you will always be fragile. It tells you were hurt once, you will always be fragile. It tells you that because you failed before, you are destined to repeat the same outcome. But pain is a teacher, not a definition. Every struggle carries a lesson, and every lesson carries the seed of transformation. The problem is not that pain exists, but that people build homes inside it. They revisit the same memories, reinforce the same beliefs, and unknowingly relive the same emotional wounds. When you realize that pain is an experience rather than an identity, you begin to loosen its grip. You start to see yourself as someone who endured, someone who survived, someone who learned. That shift changes the way you carry your story and the way you step into new chapters. Your past cannot dictate your future unless you allow it to speak louder than your present choices. Unless you allow it to speak louder than your present choices. Every day you wake up with the ability to think differently, act differently, and move differently. Yet many people unknowingly drag yesterday into today by repeating the same internally drag yesterday into today by repeating the same internal narratives. They rehearse regrets instead of rewriting possibilities. They carry guilt like a permanent shadow, believing they must atone forever. But life does not demand endless punishment for past mistakes. Growth happens when you accept what was and choose what will be. You are not bound by the worst version of yourself. You are shaped by the decisions you make now. Each new action becomes a vote for the person you are becoming, not the person you used to be. My desire to build a family is my desire to build whatever it is. O-B. There is a strange comfort in staying attached to old wounds because they are known territory. Stepping beyond them means entering the unknown, and the unknown can feel terrifying. But that is where expansion lives. When you stop introducing yourself, through your suffering, you create room for a new identity to emerge. You begin to define yourself by your resilience instead of your trauma. Your resilience instead of your trauma. You recognize the strength it took to stand back up, the wisdom gained through hard seasons, and the depth built through adversity. Is my desire to build a family, is my desire to build whatever it is. Pain may have carved you, but it also revealed your capacity to endure and evolve. The most powerful realization you can have is that your essence remains untouched beneath every experience. There was a part of you that existed before the heartbreak, before the disappointment, before the fear. That core is still there, steady and unbroken. When you reconnect with that deeper self, you stop viewing life through the lens of damage and start seeing it through the lens of possibility. You realize that you are not a finished story defined by old chapters, but a living narrative still being written. Each moment offers a chance to respond differently, to believe differently, to move with new intention. The weight of the past begins to lift when you understand that who you are is not determined by what happened, but by the awareness and strength you carry forward now, Surrender creates strength, not weakness, because it requires a level of self-awareness and courage that most people avoid. Many are taught that surrender means giving up, backing down, or accepting defeat. They imagine it as waving a white flag to life's challenges. But true surrender is not about quitting effort. It is about releasing resistance. It is the conscious decision to say to my desire to build a family is my desire to build whatever it is. Stop fighting battles that drain your spirit and start focusing on what truly matters. When you surrender, you are not saying that circumstances control you. You are saying that you will no longer allow inner chaos to dominate your thoughts. That choice demands emotional maturity. It asks you to look at your fears without running and to accept reality without denial. In doing so, you develop a grounded power that is calm, steady, and far more resilient than forced control. Strength built on force is fragile. It depends on dominance, constant effort, and external validation. The moment something unexpected happens, that type of strength cracks under pressure. Surrender, on the other hand, builds internal stability. When you accept what you cannot change, you free up energy to improve what you can. Instead of exhausting yourself trying to manipulate outcomes, you invest your focus in growth and preparation. This creates a deeper confidence because it is rooted in adaptability rather than rigidity. You become flexible without losing direction. You become calm without losing ambition. That balance is powerful without losing ambition. That balance is powerful. It allows you to face uncertainty without panic and setbacks without collapse. The strength that comes from surrender is not loud or aggressive. It is quiet and enduring, capable of withstanding storms without losing its foundation. Capable of withstanding storms without losing its foundation. Emotionally, surrender means allowing yourself to feel without being controlled by those feelings. Many people resist pain, anger, or disappointment, believing that suppressing emotions makes them strong. In reality, suppression builds pressure beneath the surface. Surrendering to your emotions does not mean drowning in them. It means acknowledging them honestly and letting them move through you. When you stop fighting your inner experiences, they lose their intensity. You gain clarity instead of confusion. This emotional honesty builds whatever it is. You gain clarity instead of confusion. This emotional honesty builds resilience because you are no longer afraid of your own reactions, but you are no longer afraid of your own reactions. You trust that you can experience discomfort without being destroyed by it. That trust strengthens your relationship with yourself and reduces the fear that once drove your need for control, and reduces the fear that once drove your need for control. In relationships and leadership, surrender creates a different kind of authority. When you release the need to dominate every conversation or control every decision, you create space for collaboration and trust. People respond to grounded confidence more than aggressive force. Surrender allows you to listen deeply, to adapt your approach, and to respect perspectives without feeling threatened. This does not weaken your standards or your vision. It refines them. You become strong enough to admit when you are wrong and secure enough to admit when you are wrong and secure enough to change direction when necessary. That flexibility enhances your influence because it shows that your strength is not tied to ego. It is tied to growth and integrity. My desire to build a family is my desire to build whatever it is. Surrender also strengthens your connection to purpose. When you stop obsessing over specific outcomes, you begin to focus on meaningful action. You work hard because it aligns with your values, not because you are desperate to control results. This shift reduces anxiety and increases clarity. You move forward with intention instead of pressure. Obstacles become lessons rather than threats. You trust the process of growth even when it unfolds differently than expected. That trust the process of growth even when it unfolds differently than expected. That trust stabilizes you during uncertain times and fuels perseverance without burnout. The strength born from surrender is sustainable because it does not rely on constant tension. It flows from acceptance, awareness, and a deep belief that you can handle whatever life presents without losing yourself in the struggle. Your next level requires releasing the old you because growth demands space without losing yourself in the old. My desire to build a family is my desire to build whatever it is, and space cannot exist when you are still clinging to outda. Cat identities, every new chapter of your life asks for a version of you that thinks differently, acts differently, and believes differently, and believes differently, and believes differently. Yet many people attempt to step into bigger opportunities while holding on to smaller mindsets. They want expansion without discomfort, success without transformation. The habits that once protected you may now be limiting you. The beliefs that once protected you may now be keeping you. The beliefs that once felt safe may now be keeping you average. Elevation is not about adding more to who you are. It is about shedding what no longer aligns with where you are. It is about shedding what no longer aligns with where you are going. When you release the old patterns, you create room for discipline, clarity, and confidence to take root in ways they never could before. The old you is familiar, and familiarity feels safe. Even if that version struggled with doubt, procrastination, or fear, it is still known territory. Letting your desire to build a family is my desire to build whatever it is. Letting it go means stepping into uncertainty, and uncertainty challenges your comfort, but comfort has never created greatness. The next level of your life requires higher standards and deeper accountability. It requires waking up when you do not feel like it, pushing forward when excuses sound convincing, and choosing growth over gratification. The old you may have settled for convenience, But the new you may have settled for convenience, but the new you understands that discipline is freedom. Releasing outdated behaviors is not self-rejection. It is self-respect. It is recognizing that you are capable of more and refusing to remain confined by patterns that no longer serve your vision. Mindset is often the hardest part to upgrade. The old you may carry limiting beliefs shaped by past experiences, failures, or criticism. Those beliefs whisper that you are not ready, not qualified, or not capable of more. If you listen closely, you will realize those voices are echoes of outdated circumstances. Your next level requires a different internal dialogue. It demands that you challenge assumptions and question narratives that once defined you. It demands that you challenge assumptions and question narratives that once defined you. Instead of asking whether you are good enough, you begin asking how you can improve. Instead of asking whether you are good enough, you begin asking how you can improve. Instead of fearing rejection, you embrace feedback as fuel. This shift does not happen automatically. It happens when you consciously decide to release the thinking patterns that kept you small and replace them with beliefs that stretch your potential. Relationships and environments also reflect the version of you that you are. As you grow, some connections may no longer align with your goals or values. Letting go can feel painful, especially when loyalty and history are involved, but your next level may require new influences, new conversations, and new standards. For your next level may require new influences, new conversations, and new standards. This does not mean abandoning people carelessly. It means being honest about what supports your evolution. It means being honest about what supports your evolution. Surroundings shape mindset, and mindset shapes outcomes. When you release environments that reinforce old limitations, you create space for inspiration and challenge. Growth thrives where expectations are higher and complacency is not tolerated. Choosing to evolve may feel lonely at times, but stagnation is far more costly in the long run. Becoming the next version of yourself is an active decision made daily. It shows up in small actions, repeated consistently. It shows up in the willingness to admit when something is not working and the courage to change it. Releasing the old you does not erase your past. It builds upon every lesson, every mistake, and every victory becomes a foundation rather than a ceiling. You step forward with gratitude for who you were and determination about who you are becoming. The process is uncomfortable because transformation always is, but discomfort signals progress. As you let go of outdated habits, fears, and identities, you begin to embody the clarity and strength required for the life you say you want.